NLP. NLP was co-developed by John Grinder and Richard Bandler, and they were actually working together on a thesis about, is there really a structure to the brain and to language and what we say and what we think? Is there really a step-by-step method on how we do that? And they discovered that there is. And so in NLP we talk about that, and we learn all of the things that have to do with how we are, the psychology of being human, and we learn to assess people really well, and we learn what change is and how to help facilitate change in an individual, and that's what we do. Then if someone comes to an NLP practitioner for, let's say someone wants to stop procrastinating. Well, we discover in NLP what's the program that's running for procrastination. So we ask them questions on what procrastination is for them. But we never ask why. Why do you suppose that is?
They probably don't.
What? A who question will give us a specific information. A presupposition is something that if you presuppose this, then NLP is true. But NLP is not so arrogant to say that this is truth. Like the first one is called, the map is not the territory.
A map is used to show someone the way, and there are many more ways than would show up on the map.
A map is just a representation of what the reality is, or what the territory is. But it isn't really the territory. Okay, so if experience has a structure, that means, well, let me ask you, how did you get here tonight?
Okay.
That makes us do this thing. For instance, with working with procrastination, a person who procrastinates has a structure on how they do it. A step-by-step method on how they do it. Similarly, a person who is, like, say, overweight, they have a step-by-step method on how they actually do that. Even if you said, I made a bad decision, or a poor decision, or I had poor judgment, nonetheless, NLP suggests that you're always making the best decisions for yourself. Now think back to the most stupidest thing that you've ever done. And yet, keeping this in mind, you're always making the best choices for yourself. People already have the resources within themselves to change. That is not outside yourself anywhere. It's all within. Anyone can do anything. Do you believe that one? You cannot not communicate. I'm not speaking to you. I shall never speak to you for the rest of my life. Of course, just not even saying so, looking at how someone is, and even what is unsaid is a communication. And we take that into consideration in NLP. So when you're working with someone, or even when you're working with your mate, or working with your children, which NLP is great with children, you can figure out what they're really thinking, what's really going on in their brain. So you cannot not communicate. And with this presupposition, too, is where we learn a lot of body language stuff in NLP. Underlying every behavior is a positive intention. Yes?
The road to hell is paved with good intention.
I was thinking about that. It's funny you said that, because when I was driving down from your house, actually, and thinking about what I was going to talk about tonight, that's exactly what came into my mind when I thought about this. So, underlying every behavior is a positive intention. So even the negative behaviors that you do has a positive intention. And we want to discover what that positive intention does. What does this do for you? So the person who has the most prerequisite variety, or flexibility, and has the most influence in that situation. Now, here's a good example. when you take a baby to a store. Well, David, we talked about this. Think about this, about the 2-year-old I think you were discussing, okay? You take a child into the store and you're standing at the counter and they grab something and you say, no. And you grab it back and you put it back. And they grab it again and you say, no. And you put it back. And then they start crying. And then you say, no. And then at some point, then the child starts having a temper tantrum. And so you have a choice then. What can you do? You can either give a piece of baby and say, here, shut up. And then the baby had the most flexibility. Because the baby, well, if I'm not going to get my way by, I'm going to start crying, I'm going to have a temper tantrum, I'm going to hold my breath. No such thing as failure. How many times have you failed in your life? You actually admit to it. Where did you fail in your life?
I didn't get a promotion or anything.
Well, you call that a failure. NLP doesn't believe in that. It's not presupposed. So we wouldn't look at that as a failure. We would look at it, one, what was the lesson? And 2, what's the next step? The only one that you can change is yourself. Which means your spouse is an ogre. And there's no way that you can control him, her. But you can only change or control the responses that you have to that big person. So this is in our NLP class, which I have an NLP class coming up. The introduction is the second week of February. It's free, by the way. It's a free weekend if you're interested in just checking it out more. Now, if you ask, what are you going to do tomorrow? Well, let's see. I'm going to see pictures and construct it. Construct is when you put something projected into the future. Also, if construction is that when someone is lying. So if someone is, if you have said, where were you yesterday? You ask that teenage daughter, and she says, I was at Jenny's house. And you say, where were you? I was at Jenny's house. You were not. Yes, I was.
For more information on this and other programs we offer for self-improvement, books, DVDs, or CDs, contact us at www.newvisionsbooks.com.